Welcome to... I'll be honest, this is straight up a conspiracy, but I'll try my best to kind of have some facts go with it. And this conspiracy is the manufacturers that are quote-unquote sponsored win the overall FIA championships. I know this is a straight up conspiracy, and there's going to be probably the majority of people who disagree. But again, I'll do my best to show proof of it. And initially, I was just going to make this a straight up rant, uncensored, and put it on Rantating. But then I figured instead of ranting about how it did end up being Toyota, Lexus, and then Aston Martin winning the championships. And yeah, there would have been somewhat more facts there, but more than anything, just hating on that it happened in the first place. I figured I would do more of a factual evidence because honestly, I forgot that Gran Turismo actually tracked and documented all this. It's in a different format than the general person gets, but yes, Gran Turismo actually calculated the overall global manufacturer cup standings for the 2018 regular season. Meaning, well, what's on the screen there, just the 2018 final season global manufacturer rankings. All this is just general information, like just when it all ended and stuff. But, I mean, here is the overall standings. Y'all may already be seeing something that I'm going to point out. If y'all know, well, me, y'all know I'm going to point it out. Can y'all guess what that something is? I don't even need guessing it. And I know this isn't the dandiest camera work in the world, but again, this is documented by Gran Turismo, meaning I'm literally showing this on GT Sport. I mean, you can see the background there. So, anyway, yeah, here's the overall manufacturer cup standings for the regular season. Meaning this calculates all the top drivers involved with individual manufacturers and all that to get the championship. Therefore, it's not held at one final event where everything's in a single room and, well, stuff can happen easier, I'll say that. It's held, well, throughout the globe. It's the global championship, so these, all in all, are more accurate representation of all the drivers who are the top ones, instead of who ends up being the very, truly, really best top three. Granted, the top three drivers in each manufacturer kind of, that doesn't mean they're the top three in the world or anything, but still, this calculates for more drivers than the overall event does. This calculates just more total drivers, and that's just a straight up fact. Because also the individual driver stuff in a minute. But for now, here's the overall manufacturer points. As y'all can see, for the global championships, Nissan won. Granted, this is 2019 now, and there were some BLP changes and all that. But there were some BLP changes for and against as well, too. So I'm looking at the 2018 standings, because these were just what were officially posted. The 2019 haven't came out yet. So this is the best thing to go off of. As y'all see, Nissan won fairly comfortably, I guess that's fair to say. Dodge second, Lexus third, Mercedes-Benz fourth, and BMW fifth. Toyota is 11th, and Lexus was fairly high at third. I mean, that's good for Lexus, but overall Toyota and Lexus, within the cars themselves, supposedly are the same thing, really. They just kind of have a different exterior look to them, apparently. I don't know if that's how Gran Turismo models them, but I'll kind of go more into detail on that in a minute. For now, it's just kind of obvious that Toyota and Lexus were fine, but they were definitely nothing special. Granted, this is factoring every single manufacturer, and the lowest of the two Toyota and Lexus finished was 11th, so that's still in the top half, but I'm not complaining about that. Realistically, Toyota is, I mean, they just have a lot of money, so to say in real racing, they probably just have enough money to make their cars slightly better. And then another side note too, the most recent manufacturer series winner is Aston Martin. They were 16th. Y'all may get Toyota and Lexus, but I'll get more on Aston Martin, probably more towards the end of the video. But anyway, here is the individual driver results. This is more of how the overall calculations were gotten. Ultimately, it's just however many drivers are shown in this screen. They just calculate all the points for the individual manufacturers. Like, Dodge had 90. The second place driver here was Dodge, and I had 40. And then add to the other Dodge drivers in the rest of the list, and it equals 90. And then the same for Nissan, and then all the other ones. So, okay, it just does it by the overall success of the top, wait for it, folks, 25 drivers. Total. Don't matter the manufacturer. For the overall manufacturer cup, it's just 16 manufacturers, and it's regulated at 3 drivers per manufacturer. Again, that's why I said the drivers, it may not really be the top 3 in the world, because ultimately it is more total drivers, but it's less manufacturers, and it's a set limit to where no matter what, it's 3 per manufacturer. So no manufacturers has an edge or loss depending on what the drivers want. It's automatically set. This is a more accurate representation because, well, drivers can pick their manufacturers and there's no limit to how many drivers run a manufacturer out of the top 25. And then this is just put to the overall regions. It's also factors in, by the way. It's just the overall point standings is obviously 25th in the world has more points than 25th in America. But all of this is factored in. Like, look, the 25th driver in America's still got a point. So that's ultimately still mattering. Not tons. But all things considered, that's still 75 drivers in the world. Again, some championships are regional finals, some championships are world finals, but ultimately the world drivers, or the world finals, that's 16 manufacturer times 3 per manufacturer, so therefore that is 48. 25, and then there's 3 regions, 25 times 3, it's 75. 75 is more than 48. This factors in more drivers, plus still, no matter whether you're talking about the region or world for this, there can be as many or as few drivers per manufacturer as the drivers want. For region and world finals at the actual events, it's no matter what the 3 drivers per manufacturer. And then this here is the overall standings for the other regions. Again, this whole thing is on GT Sport itself, so I'm not going to link it, because it's not really a link, it's just in the game. The game is just... I assume if you're watching this video, you probably have GT Sport. But now is to how I'm talking about how the World Championships were ultimately gotten. This, I'm not going to sell a physical thing, because ultimately it's just more saying it. Lexus won the 2018 championships. Toyota was second. Toyota and Lexus are ultimately the same company. Toyota owns Lexus. They started Lexus in about 1990-ish. And then the most recent was Aston Martin winning. To start out, the basic fact of Toyota gets an exclusive license with GT Sport now. From what it's looking like, that's actually kind of been going on for about a year or so. Really, this just now, it's kind of becoming downright official. Toyota is starting some type of GT Academy thing, but it's just done in a worse way. And it'll probably end up being a rant on Rantating, my new second channel. But I'll see as stuff goes. For now, I'll just mention that Toyota is having just the GR Supra in a championship in which just people can enter and then ultimately get a tangible thing. It will be decided at a later date, and it will be at the Tokyo Motor Show at the end of the year, just whatever that thing is that they get or whatever. But nonetheless, it's just people drive Supras, and this is the only game that has Supras, so therefore Toyota puts their championship in this game. On paper, yeah, that makes sense. Just GT Sports, the game that has the new Supra in it, so therefore, duh, Toyota would put the event in the game with the new Supra. But then you start to think, why is GT Sport the only game with the new Supra? Yes, if Toyota's looking for a pure racing game with actual like a point system and a already established FIA championship type event, Gran Turismo is a good one to turn to. But then you remember that it's kind of the general consensus that GT Sport actually ain't the best simulator anymore. It's just not me hating on GT Sport. That's just kind of become a universal trend. Assetto Corsa, Project Cars, stuff like that. A lot of people there just downright better simulators. So if Toyota's truly going for having the cars be accurately simulated to get a championship, you'd think they'd just go ahead and allow the cars to be in, like Assetto Corsa, Project Cars, and all the stuff they said there. But then you remember the sales figures. Granted, I've said this time and again, GT Sport sales figures still aren't really announced, and all they say is their player base, which doesn't accurately equivalent to sales because alternate accounts and all that. I'm not really getting into that too much, so I think y'all get what I'm saying in general. Ultimately, it's still a pretty good bet, though, that GT Sport has outsold something like iRacing, kind of by default. And those two are the most similar games, meaning their point system is kind of equal. Their driver/sportsmanship rating, or what it is to iRacing, is pretty equal. And then you compare it to something like Assetto Corsa, Project Cars, which has a lot more sales than iRacing, but then they don't have the rating system, so they're kind of out of the question. And yeah, we don't know GT Sport sales for sure, but also kind of general universal consensus is it's sold more than all the other simulator racing games. The huge gap is between GT Sport and iRacing in sales, but there's also a huge gap between GT Sport and Assetto Corsa and Project Cars in their systems in which they grade drivers. So, AK, here's where it all rounds to the conspiracy, meaning Gran Turismo got Toyota and Lexus and all that to win. Ultimately, as I said before, it's 3 drivers per manufacturer, meaning it's already calculated kind of in general how good the drivers are. So, we know coming in what drivers we can pick as favorites by just how good their driver sportsmanship rating, all this is, and just their raw tangible results that can be easily calculated in GT Sport. So, lo and behold, Toyota and Lexus didn't have, on paper, the favorites to win the 2018 championships. That means no one was necessarily expecting Toyota, and this is where a lot of people probably deny the general conspiracy, because the drivers just weren't considered to be as good. So it was this ultimately feat, and that it happened, and it was this a nice event and a nice that it happened because not that many people were expecting it. So a lot of people would say if it was rigged, they would have been given the better drivers. But that's why I brought up the whole systematic approach that GT Sport has. That's why Toyota won it did. Because that's to lead people off Toyota's trail. Meaning, the real way that I believe that Toyota, quote-unquote, rigged the events was it's overall making the cars better in general. Not tons to where it was super noticeable, but here is a straight-up fact that I noticed in the 2018 finals, the one at the actual tangible events, and it was in fact a world final. In the very last race, Dodge, who, as y'all can see here, finished pretty cotton picking good in just overall regular season global championships, was running third in the final race. At the last pit stop, they put on racing hard tires. A lot of the people around them were on mediums and softs and stuff, so yes, you'd think Dodge would drop down in the pack. But about 2 laps after, actually I can't remember exact laps, but let's just say about 3 or so minutes after Dodge pitted and came out, well, they came out about in second. At that point, they were running about in fourth. No big deal. You were kind of expecting them to drop just because they went on a different pit strategy than all the others, so they were on more tires at the end. But as you'll know, as laps go on, the tire wear occurs. That's realistic. Racing soft tires wear more than racing hard tires. So you'd figure by the last lap, Dodge would be dropping a lot less, if anything slightly gaining on cars that have racing soft tires. But Dodge at that point was not on camera, even though they were still in fourth place, so still doing pretty well. You'd think at some point the camera would have ultimately panned to them at some point. But no, all of a sudden, within the very last little bit of the race, Dodge dropped from fourth to, if I remember correctly, they finished like second to last or something stupid. And all that happened within the course of the last about 2 minutes of the race. You may be thinking that they might have wrecked. But also, in general, if there's a wreck, they show it on camera. Why would they not show the fourth place car, aka pretty cotton picking close to the podium, and the whole tire thing too? By the last little bit of the race, the racing soft tires would be worn more. So therefore, the fourth place driver could maybe catch third and get on the podium. Why would they not be showing that? Well, that's because the entire time they were pretty much showing Toyota and Lexus, who were 1-2. Granted, that was the battle for the championship. But if you're mainly only showing the top two, you don't really get a good read on the other tire wear and fuel consumption of the other vehicles. If you would have shown fourth place being Dodge, probably would have been shown that the Dodge worn tires quite terribly, even on the hard tires, because I know personal experience of that. Dodge in general, mine is pretty high up in terms of speed. I'm not going to deny that. That's not even my bias. Y'all can see it right here. It's quite terrible in fuel and tire consumption. So, aka, that wasn't exactly seen. Dodge, I highly doubt, got wrecked or whatever. I think they just were sitting duck because of tire wear and fuel consumption. So they were out. All in all, because they were on racing hards and they were still forthcoming to the end of the race, they sort of had the best chance to get to third, meaning they would be the best challenger to get Toyota and Lexus. Dodge was out at that point. Granted, again, this sounds like a huge conspiracy because, as y'all know, I'm biased towards Dodge and I'm not going to deny that. But I mean, there's no denying this either. It's just Lexus, the best of the two between Toyota and Lexus, was third. Dodge was second. So you'd think those two would be close. But Dodge would sort of kind of have an advantage, especially on Toyota, who was 11th. Dodge was pretty close at the end. Entire strategy meant that if they could keep it close to near the end, at the very end, they might be able to gain some because their tires were less. Nope. So then it just saw the battle of the top two, which I mean is realistic. No one's going to bat an eye at that because that's what the camera's generally supposed to be on at the end of the race. Is the battle between the best to see who wins the championship, and lo and behold, it was. Toyota and Lexus finished second and first in that order. Like Lexus won the championship, Toyota was second. So there's that, folks. The best challenger, Toyota and Lexus, they didn't wreck, so that didn't warrant them being on camera. So therefore the camera stayed on Toyota and Lexus, so you didn't really see the tire and fuel consumption of the rest of them. The drivers for Toyota and Lexus, I mean, yeah, all of them are quite incredible, and all in all, there isn't a huge gap between even the very worst and very best drivers at the championship, But ultimately, they were not picked before the championship starts as the consensus favorite to win it. Because, I mean, as y'all could see by standings below, there were some quite incredible drivers running other manufacturers. Like, I mean, here's just overall for the global. Europe, Dodge and Volkswagen were up there with other drivers. America's BMW and Nissan, and then still Dodge in third. And then Nissan, Lexus, and Honda. One of them was one of the two manufacturers, Lexus, and Lexus had a third overall. So Lexus was pretty strong, I'm not going to deny that. Lexus won the overall championship. Toyota, though, was sort of kind of mediocre. Granted, you would also think they're kind of both the same thing, and I brought that up again too. So all in all, I think that's kind of what ultimately happened. Toyota, who's partnered with Gran Turismo, and only Gran Turismo, saw the opportunity to profit off that and get all they can out of it. They're partnered with Gran Turismo, they may as well be on camera more and win the championships that they're partnered with. That just makes logical sense, doesn't it? So ultimately, I think before the overall all-in-one-room thing started, there was a balanced power change to pretty much make the Toyota and Lexus exactly the same. Because you're not really going to bat an eye at that either, because Toyota and Lexus are essentially the same in the race car. So ultimately, that made Toyota really strong as well. But the thing that was completely under the table and unseen, because the camera just stayed on the top two, was not the drivers or the cars themselves, it was the tire wear and fuel consumption. That was the change. Toyota was given a strong car at the end, because Lexus also had a strong car. It wasn't necessarily the best, but it was probably a top 3. Tire wear and fuel consumption was the big changer at the end. And that's where Toyota got their championship. Granted, they got it via Lexus, but still, that's yet another reason to not really believe the conspiracy, is it wasn't Toyota that won, it was Lexus. Lexus and Toyota, though, are the same thing, so really I don't think Toyota, as the overall company, cares which one of them two wins. Especially when the other one still finished second. And now to the most recent thing, being Aston Martin. They won the championship. In short, kind of the same thing. I'm not going to go into as much detail here, but Aston Martin didn't have the consensus driver car or even really tire wear and fuel consumption. Aston Martin's your general big front engine rear-wheel drive and always have kind of been known to have pretty bad tire wear and fuel consumption. So, how did they win? I'll be honest. Again, this is why I'm not showing the 2019 overall points, is just because those haven't been calculated yet. The overall manufacturer and all that just hasn't been done yet, because ultimately this is just the first round of this season. So I'm not really going to go there yet. But I will say, Aston Martin and Red Bull are in partnership making a new supercar. I think it's called the Valkyrie or something like that. But overall, that's not important to the specifics of the car. The important is Aston Martin and Red Bull are in a partnership. One of the main sponsors of Gran Turismo FIA Championships, other than, well, FIA, and like I mentioned before, Toyota, is Red Bull. Toyota wants their cars to win for the branding. Red Bull wants their car to win for the branding. Guess what the final race of the manufacturer cup had the winner? It was Aston Martin. They won that championship. And guess what the final race of the manufacturer cup, the Nations Cup, featured Red Bulls. Granted, the Nations Cup has been featuring Red Bulls as the final race for a while, but this was a time in which Red Bull could actually do something, because first was probably just locked. Toyota was getting that one, because after Toyota won that championship, they just finalize the actual 12 events and all that. That was probably just overall ink, like sign on the paper, nail on the coffin, whatever, to finalize the whole Toyota deal. So this was a time in which Red Bull could strike for sponsorships. Red Bull got their name recognition with the Nations Cup being their own cars, and they got their partnership recognition with the Manufacturer Cup Championship being Aston Martin. A lot of the main Aston Martin high-ups have said they wanted their new supercars to be in game at some point, I don't know when, after they've won the championship. Meaning PD gets more cars, Aston Martin and Red Bull get more recognition. So, there you have it, folks. I know, again, big conspiracy. I'm definitely not expecting everyone to believe it. But this is just my thoughts on the matter. Again, just thoughts. I can pretty much guarantee this will never be completely proven, but I mean, let's be honest here, folks. PD still have yet to release the actual sales number of GT Sport, so they're probably going to be trying to make some money from sponsorships. And I'm not even all that mad at PD. That's why I ultimately decided to do this as more of an analysis video than a rant video. It was because I'm sure PD's making tons of money off this. And ultimately, we'll be getting some cars. It's already been downright proven. We'll be getting a new Red Bull. We'll be getting that 2014 competition thing. So out of this deal, we're getting new stuff. Everyone is. So it's looking like, in general, it's mutually beneficial. But also, in general, it's kind of shady. Would I rather it be just the best manufacturer wins and not have it be rigged? Yes. But would that mean everyone's kind of getting less stuff? PD getting less money? The brand's getting less recognition? And then ultimately the consumers, meaning us, getting less cars to drive? Yeah, but at least that'd be the fairest way to do it. Do I think Dodge would have won outright if the whole thing didn't happen? No. I think Porsche was up there too. And Porsche in general has always been strong in real life and in the game. And that's fair enough. I don't even think that deals with PD or anything. I think that's just fairly realistic. Especially now that this is the first game that has Porsche in it. Of course PD's going to make them pretty fast because they know a lot of people are going to drive them. So you don't want to make a lot of people mad, and that's fair enough. So, I think maybe Porsche would have won the first championship. And for the second championship, I'd kind of be guessing BMW. Because again, BMW were up there, and especially in America's reason, for 2018. And 2019, well, this driver won the Nations Cup in the BMW. Or driving BMW for the events that had them, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to attempt to deny that the overall winner probably wasn't the fairest thing in the world. But I'm not all that mad about it either. Ultimately, I'd much rather it be PD stay afloat and having new content than anything. Yeah, if it would have been rigged towards Dodge and we were getting new stuff, that would have been the best thing for me. I'm not going to deny that. But I also saw no way in which that could really happen either. This was probably just the scenario that was decided for probably longer than the general public knows. And it was played out to the point in which kind of sort of everyone benefits in some way or another. So hopefully this doesn't end up becoming a big controversial deal or anything, because ultimately, I'm not saying this is downright 100% change. If it's going to be something where the manufacturers have just signed on a dotted line, and this is what's set for the future, then it shouldn't change just because of one conspiracy by one person. Granted, if it's looking like, lo and behold, a lot of people believe my conspiracy, then maybe something's to be done about it, but I am I can make more of a deal of it than this video, most likely. If you leave a comment on the video, I'll like the comment or respond to it or whatever. But this is just my thoughts on the issue, and that's that. Do I have a prediction of what's going to be rigged for the future? Not particularly, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be another dealing with a tie-in. The next tie-in that's major that hasn't had anything yet is Tag Heuer, that Watts, I don't know how to pronounce. I don't know what they would have to deal with cars, but I will say they have their own museum section, so I kind of wouldn't doubt if they come out with some sort of iteration that involves a car at some point. I ain't saying they will, and I don't know what it would be, but I just say they're kind of the realistic next step in line. So, no, this ain't worth yeehaw, but yes, we do get a Red Bull, we do get new events involving the Super, and just in general, we get the Super. Again, that would be where the rant comes in if I do it. It's just, I truly, really believe no matter how much we get as the Gran Turismo community, it's still downright messed up that now any game, even if it's quote-unquote our game, gets the Toyota exclusivity because of the whole Porsche fiasco, but that will be in the rant. For now, I'm just going to end this video saying that even if it's mutually beneficial, stuff should still be done that's morally correct. Maybe I'm wrong about this, and all this was done the way it should have been, but a lot of things show that it kind of wasn't. As long as it's benefiting people, probably a lot of people are going to be quiet about it, and from now on, I'm going to still be pretty quiet about it too, just because I'm one of the part of the people benefiting. But if the Toyota exclusivity stays for many years, and Gran Turismo starts just continually getting worse, kind of like how the games has trended to go the past few years, people are going to become less and less quiet about the issue, and let's see what happens in the future. But for now, meh. It certainly ain't worth yeehaw, but probably not really worth talking about much more for now, either.